Okay, back to our server. So the server is running on the port 4001, but it's not doing anything. It's not doing much. When I go to localhost 4001, localhost is the IP of the server. So if I write what is my local host IP, this is my local host. So whether we're gonna say localhost or I say 127.0.0.1 is the local host, and if I do unable to connect. And why is it unable to connect? Because I don't have a root. I haven't done anything. I have a server, but as you can see, it's not doing much. Jesus, wait, sorry. So it has to have the same format as the local host, so it can't connect. So localhost is the IP, and 4001 is one of the 65,000 pretty much ports. So we want to call the server our server, and this server can return something. It can return a piece of string, it can return a number, it can return JSON, it can return an HTML page, it can return anything pretty much. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna I'm gonna stop the server, or actually, I don't need to do that. I'm gonna take the server I did, which is up, and I make a get request. Get request, there are lots of requests you can do to the server. You can get data from the server. Literally, you ask the server via URL. So you hit, in order to communicate with a laptop or any other device, a camera, whatever, you hit the URL. Yeah, it's like talking to a person. A person has a name, right? My name is Sarandis or Yorgos or Pavlos or whatever. So you call his name. On the computer, on the server, it doesn't have a name. You can call, hey Mitsos, give me something. Now you have to hit a URL. That's how you ask the server to return something. So now we're gonna ask the server to return something. So I want to get something, okay? And I want to get I'm gonna ask on localhost on the 4001, and I want to say I want to get a user. That's the full URL. We're gonna see it in a minute. When you do that, the server has a request object, we'll see it later, and a response object. That's in every call, whether this is get, post, put, delete. We'll see these calls later on. But what is the request and the response? We will see them, but they are objects that the server puts together. So a request is the data we send, and the response is the data the server is sending. So what we're writing now eventually this is a callback function. It's exactly like this. On this one we gave the port, and this is our callback function, which print on the terminal. Server is running on this port. Now we make a callback function which takes two objects, and we use the arrows, this syntax, and then we say the response needs to be, if it's successful, it's gonna be status 200. More on this in a bit. So I'm saying congratulations, it's a successful response 200. This is the HTTP responses. Probably you know the 404 is the not found one. So well done, it works as expected. And then I want to actually send something. What I'm gonna send, I want to send an object with an object which is gonna be name, and it's gonna be Sarandis, right? Let's say that these are data that they come from a database. They are not from a database, they are hard-coded for the time being. And surname is going to be Sarandu. So this is a JSON basically, or an object. The JSON, the difference between JSON and objects is like this is a JSON, right? Obviously, and this is an object. So I'm gonna call the server, right? And he's gonna return me a name and surname. Why? Well, that's because that's what a server is. That's what the server does. We make a request, we ask for data, and the server sends stuff back. As I said, string, JSON, objects, HTML. So I'm gonna save this, and because we have the nodemon, it runs this command. You see, run by the npm run start command. So it runs the npm npx nodemon server.js, and now the server is running. But still, I don't know what it's doing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say localhost, which is the IP address, / right? I'm gonna say user, give me user, and when I do hit the enter button, it's gonna give me the name and surname which I hard-coded for the server to return, which is exactly the same. This one, the 127.0.0.1 at the port 4001 is the local host, right? Is the local IP address with the port 4001. It has 65 ports, right? Roughly. So I hit user, and this is not running. Perfect. Here, without the HTTPS, you see it's exactly the same thing. Now, there are two ways to check this. From browser, you can always check the GET requests, and that's what the browser does. It asks for data, right, and the server returns data. Now, the reality is Chrome can also, you can send data to the server instead of requesting. But in order to check that, we're gonna use a software called Insomnia. With this one, you can mimic the HTTP request, whether this is a get, post, put, patch, delete. And you do that because we don't have a front end. What I mean, when we go on a site and you log in, for example, let's say you go on your email from your browser, you write your email, and then you write your password, and then you put connect. So what the browser does, or if you prefer the client, when you hear client is the browser, when you hear server, the server is the backend. Okay, so the client sends to the server a post request and says, here's the email of the user, here's the password of the user, do something. Now, in order to mimic that, you'll see it later on, we need to use Insomnia or Postman. At the moment, the GET request, we can use the browser, but we can also use the Insomnia. So if I take localhost on the port 4001/user, okay, and I put it here, what do I expect? Sorry, this is the body, this is the response down here. I expect the same thing. Okay. If I delete the user and I save it and I do this, what do I expect? The same thing. If I write and say on tomatoes here and I save, the server restarts, and I do this one, cannot get. Why it cannot get? Because I should say /tomatoes. You alright? So user goes here, save, and user goes there. So this is the get request. And as I said, get requests can be tested from the browser, but we're gonna use a Postman, which Postman mimics the front end because we don't have a form to send this data, at least yet. Thanks for watching on that one.